All right, so I am joined by Catch's Catch Can legend and a friend of mine for, geez, I guess it's the better part of a decade now, which really blows my mind how time flies.
That's right.
Billy Wicks. Billy Wicks, and also one of his top guys, John Strickland. John Strickland's been a part, of the kind of grassroots catch wrestling scene for a long time, been with Billy Wicks for a long time, and I wanted to welcome both of you guys to the call, and thanks a ton for making the time.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us, Jake.
Yeah, of course. Now, Pops, boy, I've told you this before, and I'll say it again. I've done my best to train with a bunch of people and all that kind of stuff, and I got to say, of all the people that I've ever talked to, now you and I haven't actually been on the mat together, but you've been so pivotal in my understanding of kind of Catch as Catch Can, the understanding the way that it works and things like that. So over the last 10 years, I really do consider you not only a friend, but somebody who really helped show me, for lack of a better term, show me the ropes a bit and get my head straight about some of these things.
I've seen you in some of your videos and some of your demonstrations with Billy Robinson. I've seen you grow tremendously in your ability as a catch teacher. I'm sure you stole all that from Billy Robinson, of course. But
yeah, I mean, none of it's mine. I'm just my thing is like we've talked about before is I'm not a guru, and I actually have a bit of a anti-guru bias. My whole purpose here is kind of quality control, to make sure that that the nonsense, the work stuff stays out of the shoot stuff, and that we can really try to keep this alive, and kind of as a generational thing, going from like guys like you and Billy Robinson, Dick Cardinal, and Carl Gotch, and all those guys like that, and moving on to the next generation of guys, and we can keep it true and keep some real tough Catch as Catch Can mat wrestlers out there and going. So, and that actually kind of brings up one thing that I'm curious how you guys have solved it. The thing that bothered me the most when I started coming in is everybody was making these claims, and everybody, and it was all internet flame war nonsense.
That's right.
And the way I thought to solve it was, let's do some sort of way of certifying that, in fact, like with Billy Robinson now, we have certifications that show you've spent at least 15 to 20 hours on the mat each certification, and then by the time we even consider calling you an assistant coach, which is at our discretion completely, if you can actually have half a clue what's going on, you've spent hundreds of hours, on the mat. So that was my way of kind of trying to solve this problem of just anybody stepping in and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a guru," and that kind of thing. How is it that you guys have done that? Because I know that John has been with you for, what is it, John, 12 years or 13 years or something under Billy?
Yeah. 12, 13, somewhere in there, yeah. So. And
you got guys like Johnny Husky and Chris Rogers who might even have been there longer, right?
Yeah. Yes. Johnny was my first hookup with it. I don't know if I ever told you how he contacted me at work, and he called me on the phone and asked me. I was working at that time at the Waynesville Recreation Center here, and Johnny called me on the phone, told me who he was, asked if he could come over and see me. I said, "Yeah, sure, come on over." So when he told me his name was Johnny Husky, I thought, well, this is a real made-up name, Johnny Husky. So when he got over there, he surprised me. I said, well, I guess that really is his name. And so we clicked it off pretty good, and he invited me over to his class at that time, which was in an old rickety building that had one toilet and hardly any water. And it was a pitiful place, but we clicked it off pretty good together. And called me yesterday, in fact. Of course, he's got a big MMA school called Black Eye now, MMA, over here in Arden, North Carolina. And it's a fabulous place, about 13,000 square feet.
Wow.
And he still hadn't had it. He's been going pretty close to a year, and he hadn't even had his grand opening. He said, "Pops," he He said, when I have my grand opening, he said, I'm going to come over and get you. I want you to come be here. He said, but they keep me so damn busy. He said, I'm at the gym, he says, from 9 to 9 almost every day. He said, closed on Sundays. And he said, I got anywhere from 25 to 30 in a class.
Wow.
I'm covered up. He said, I'm flat covered up. I said, well, it sounds like. But I said, I certainly would like to be over there for your grand opening.
Well, and guys like Johnny and and John, who's on the phone with us, and Chris Rogers, I mean, you guys are all pretty much sticklers to stick with the way that Pops has taught you, at least with regards to the – I know the MMA is where the money's at and it's popular and stuff, but with the grappling, I mean, you guys are pretty much strictly catch as catch can.
Yeah, let me interrupt you. Johnny Husky told me, and this was, some years later. He said, Pop, he said, it almost took me, he said, about 3 years to finally catch on to what you were trying to teach me. It's not like you show a guy, here's a hole. Oh, yeah, I know that. And that's what a lot of guys think when they show them a hole or start telling them, oh, yeah, I know that. No, you think you know that. And that's what Johnny Husky told me. He said, Pops, he said, it was a good 3 years before I really understood what you were trying to teach me about catch wrestling. I said, I'm glad you finally caught on.
Well, and I think it's important that people understand that it does take those years, and years not just as showing up at 1 or 2 seminars or maybe, watching some videos on YouTube, but actually showing up and having an old-timer like you at the gym, when you're doing something wrong, stop you and be like, hey, no, that's wrong, move an inch here and there. I mean,
that's right.
That's been my experience. That's my experience with Billy Robinson, and it sounds very similar, I'm sure, to maybe John, his experience with you, Pops.
Yeah. Did I send you that email about my definition of wrestling?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
About triangle and Kimura and Twister and Cobra and Anaconda and Americana and all these. Those are not wrestling terms. Those are made-up names by people that don't know nothing about wrestling.
Yeah, it's kind of they're basically just reinventing the wheel. It's already been invented.
Right, that's exactly right. You hit it on the head.
So, John, tell me a little bit about your experience training with Pops. I mean, one of the things, like I said, I'm not a guru, and I do pride myself on, I may not be a gifted athlete or anything like that, but I do have a decent head on my shoulders, and I try to really apply some serious quality control to what we're doing, because my whole thing is to bring back respectability and to bring back catch can as a sport. And I'm curious, you've been around this scene for a long time, so you're not you're very aware of how all that goes and the quality control and stuff. I mean, what's your view on that? How do you vet somebody that you've had at your gym versus somebody who maybe just comes by and says, shakes hands, does a seminar, takes a picture, and you know what I'm getting at, John?
Sure. With us, I mean, it was several years ago, where Pops had finally said, and with Johnny and like you mentioned Chris Rogers and myself and guys like Patrick Green and Martin Steiner, Matt Covan, we got a certification sort of too, like you guys have done, a little differently. Now, with that being said, like with my guys in the gym I do, and I'm a sister school, basically, of Johnny's school.
What's your school, by the way, and what city is it in?
We're in Easley, South Carolina, and the name of our gym is Ground Force Mixed Martial Arts.
Nice. And
we fight under Team Husky. With me, I have a few guys. I've had a lot of guys come in and train, but as you know, and as Pops knows, a lot of guys, they just, for some reason they just can't do this. And it's not saying, maybe it's not always physical ability. Sometimes they don't have the time, but whatever it is, it's just not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I've probably had, I've lost count of how many people came through. I've only got, 3 or 4 boys, though, that I would actually say who really spent the time with me and trained. And obviously one is Matt Tran. Matt Tran has been with me for a long time, and he's done very well, especially in the local MMA scene. He's won several high-level tournaments. Charlie Lewis is another one of my guys. Michael Emerson, you know, if there's somebody I left out, I'd apologize. But that's the ones that come to mind right now. That you know, but mainly, you know, Matt's probably my top guy. Or you know, as they used to use the term policeman. He's you know, he's that. But I don't have a certification program with him per se right now. It's something that, you know, I'm thinking about looking into. And especially when
but if I can real quick, John, you know, the thing is that, you know, you have access to the internet, you're on Facebook, and so if somebody says, oh yeah, I spent 10 years training under John Strickland, you know, who's, you know, spent 10 years or 12 years or 13 years with Billy Wicks, you could just basically say, no, you didn't, if they hadn't, right? Whereas, you know, some of these guys, like with Carl, you know, there was a certain somebody going around on the internet saying they had done all this stuff, and I just printed out a website and mailed it to him and got him quite lit up. You know, there's a lot of that going on. I mean, you know, do you guys have some kind of method for quality control like that, or do you just basically, because you guys you're younger and you're close knit like you and Chris and Johnny and that? I mean, is that kind of how you do it?
Yeah, we're close knit, and Pops, you know, he kind of had an order, I guess, of who was the coaches under him.
Yeah.
And I mean, he could tell you more about that, who he thinks is who and whatnot. You know, so, and like you said, you know, anybody who knows me from wrestling knows, you know, I'm almost on the internet daily.
Yeah.
If I'm not at the internet, I'm usually babysitting my child, which is not really babysitting, it's being a dad, which is not that's a lost art in itself in the modern world. And
being a dad,
being a father, being a father, or I'm at the gym, getting my guys ready as much as possible. But I've had a lot of knee injuries, really bad health. So, you know, I'm not in as much as I used to be, but I'm still there, just kind of overseeing things right now.
Well, the health thing seems to be maybe a bit of par for the course, is it? I mean, wouldn't that be true, Pops? Because I know that you've had some maybe nerve damage and things like that, and I know Billy Robinson, and these are wrestling-related injuries, and I have some serious spinal damage, and John, you've got bad knees, and Pops, you know, what do you recommend for like the young catch wrestlers coming up so they don't end up, you know, banged up as bad?
Well, don't do what I do. Like how I got my neck hurt years ago. I was bridging on the back of my neck. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep, I do.
Your neck. Worst exercise you can do. That's what I saw. What's his name? God, guy that just died. Oh, Carl Gotch.
Oh yeah, Carl Gotch. Yeah, he loved the bridging, but I'll tell you, you know, for guys like me, I can't do it. Because I've got bad injuries there.
I'm criticizing him. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Worst thing you can do for a guy. That's how I got my neck hurt, doing that shit. And you don't need to do that. How many times do you really have to pop into a bridge? You pop your bridge basically off of your shoulders.
Yeah.
And your neck, of course, but you certainly don't go on the back of your head and try to roll your forehead over on the mat like some guys try to do.
Well, I remember you had some stuff where you used to, so you, if I remember right, it's a partner neck exercise. Isn't that right, Pops?
Right. That was at 4 ways laying on a bench.
Yep.
And do the 4 angles, back and forth and sideways. I made a DVD of that some time ago. I don't know whatever happened to it. But that's
I remember you'd sent me some footage years ago. I mean, this is probably 10 years ago on your camcorder. You'd sent me some footage of you guys doing it. I think it was maybe, I can't remember if it was Martin or who was it.
I think Martin. Yeah, that's right. I think it was Martin. And I demonstrated how he stood on his head against the wall and put all his weight on his neck. And I said, hey, you don't want to do that. So you get over here on the bench. I got him on a bench, and I pushed his head down sideways and backwards, and all 4 directions. And that's how you build your neck. And you don't have no pressure down on it. There's a pressure down. You're squeezing those cervical vertebrae in there. You don't need to do that.
Yeah. Now that you raise an interesting point about you're like, well, Carl did it that way, and I'm critical of that. And here's the thing that I find so weird, especially with like these internet cowboys who really have no clue and just end up creating a lot more problems than there really are in the first place. catch wrestling is this, it's funny because if you look at it like any sport, you look at amateur wrestling, you have somebody like John Smith, he's going to show it different than Cael Sanderson, but they're both wrestlers.
Right.
And so, there's going to be a catch wrestling that's kind of got the Billy Wicks, the Pops flavor to it. And there's going to be a catch wrestling that has, the Billy Robinson or the Carl Gotcha, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same sport, but just, and there's no animosity between, say, a Cael Sanderson and a John Smith other than healthy competition.
That's right. That's what you call sharing. It's sharing. That's all it is. It's like you said, quality control. That's what you're talking right there.
Yeah. So John, I know that. So Johnny's got a school, which is great. You've got a school, which is great. Kind of continuing on this Billy Wicks tradition of the catch as catch can and the kind of carny-style catch as catch can wrestling. What about Chris Rogers? I know Chris has had some success in, abusing some high-level jiu-jitsu competitors, doing really well. What's Chris Rogers up to?
89-12, if I remember right, his record.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's he up to, John?
Chris is, he's not only is an old stablemate, he's one of my best friends. Chris is a great guy.
Overweight.
And he's a really terrific person. He's a very knowledgeable guy. And he's right now he's got a family and he stays pretty busy himself. He comes down here every now and then and works out with us. He wrestled with one of my guys recently a little bit. And he and I are thinking about we've got some things in mind and projects in mind that we're thinking about in the future. But right now, as far as I know, Johnny and I are the only two guys who are running gyms, currently, like you had mentioned earlier. But Chris is a guy who'll get back involved. He's just he's wrapped up with his job, and like I said, he's got a large family, so it's really taken him away from more of the gym setting.
Yeah.
And that's the thing right now is as far as my knowledge, Johnny and I are the only guys who are teaching Pops style. And that somebody said the other day, and I hear this, and I'm sure Johnny hears it. Guys will be like, "Oh, that's you're awesome, coach," or "That's great." And it's not me. I think I've told you that before. It's not me. I'm just doing. I'm a little bit of a yes sir man. So anything that Pops has told me over the years, then that's what I do, and that's what I show. I had a pretty good time spent in. Had a long time spent in jiu-jitsu, and I studied other submission styles before I got into catch as catch can. And I'm not saying catch as catch can is better. For me, it was better. It helped my body mechanics. It was better for my body mechanics, and I guess maybe my mind. And I had much more success in that, actually even against jiu-jitsu people than when I was doing jiu-jitsu. So, you go back, you mentioned about Chris, but yeah, Chris is, when Chris was competing, he was phenomenal. He really was. And I loved him to death. Conditioning wasn't his main goal, and I would have loved to see Chris Rogers in good shape. I'd have loved to see what he could have done. And when you get into a pecking order of things, he and Johnny are two guys that I know for sure that will stretch me out at any moment. They wish. Both are big. Both are very powerful too.
Yeah. Let me interrupt you 1 minute here, John. There's I used to have a T-shirt that said that on front. It said, "The guard is for girls." And I used to wear that to all these tournaments. And I don't know if you heard a guy named Joe Hurst from South Carolina, BJJ guy.
I don't know him, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't know many people in jiu-jitsu. So.
But anyway, Joe is a terrific guy. I went to one of his tournaments he had down there in South Carolina, and he treated me like I was his long-lost grandpa. He's terrific. So anyway, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. So I once emailed him and I said, my opinion of you jiu-jitsu guys are nothing but lazy wrestlers. That's all you are, lazy wrestlers. He said, "Well, Pops," he said, "I know I am." I thought that was.
Yeah, I think the rules of the game change it. You know, I think it's not a lot more complicated than that. And the fact that we have pins as well as submission, you know, makes it a little more active. It drives the action. Even when, like, you know, because back in 2007 I started up the tournaments under, you know, the old catch-as-catch-can rules. Excuse me. And even though none of these guys really knew the classical kind of, you know, the traditional catch-as-catch-can methods, just adding the pin on the tournament really drove the action, just that simple act. And so what you're saying, Pops, really comes to heart. And I think it has to do not necessarily with the people participating, because one thing about jiu-jitsu that I respect is how game they are. You know, they're always willing to roll.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. I think because they can just lay there on the back, and that's not a penalty, it does. It just makes them kind of want to work from there because there's no incentive to get off your back.
Right. That's right.
Now,
Jake, to intervene right here real quick,
yep.
And that took me for years, and you just said something earlier about, you know, the way Pops coaches, and I don't know if Pops remembers this or not. I'm sure he will, but when I first got with him, anytime I was on my back, Pops had a safety pin.
No, it was like an ice pick.
Yeah, and he wasn't kidding. He said, "Get off your back." And my response is, "I can't. He's too big. He's too strong." Because he and I had talked earlier, the main people I would wrestle with, Chris Rogers was one of them. And I mean, if you know Chris and know me, then obviously there's a big size difference. But he'd
280.
I'd be on my back, and yeah, you know, I'd be on my back, Jake, and he would, Pops would be like, get off your back, John. And I'd be like, I can't. And he'd get his safety pin out, and I'd see it. And when I say safety pin, I'm not talking like a little one you get from the dry cleaner. You know, I'm talking, you know, a really big safety pin. You don't want to be stabbed with it, and especially, I guess, in the rear, you know. So when he, you know, I'd get off my back. I remember the first time thinking, how mean, you know, what? That's just mean. And I never even experienced this in my life. And then over the years, you know, I just got to love it and appreciate it so much because his point was, if you can get off your back because that safety pin's coming, then you can get off your back if the safety pin is not coming.
Well, I like to pass this on to you too about that. Most guys, Jake, this is for your information too, and you're John, of course. Most guys do not know how to get off of their back. They usually push up at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock. They're pushing themselves down. They're not pushing themselves off. The way you have to get off your back, if somebody's on you, even in a side control or top mounted, you take either hand, which way is the easiest for you, and you drive your fist at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. That's parallel to the mat. You follow me?
Yes, sir.
You create a little distance by so-called a fake bridge or a fake bump up to get some space between you, and you drive your fist parallel to the mat, which like would be if you go left hand, it's going to be at 3 o'clock, and if you go right hand, it's going to be at 9 o'clock. Now, if he blocks you one way, you quickly go back to the other direction. And that's how you get off your back. But you see guys that will push up at 10 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, think that they're going to push you off him. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain to you.
I do, and it's funny, not only that advice, but then also the safety pin. It just is so congruent with, you know, me being with Billy Robinson now for going on 6 years. I mean, so Billy has his cane, and he's not afraid to poke you or whack you with it. But it's the same thing. It's just get up off your back, and it's about the right angles and about having the right proper power. No matter how big the guy is on top of you, if you hit the right angles, you should be able to get right over to your belly and stand right up.
I got to get this point over to people, and they don't get it. You parallel to the mat to get off your back. You push your left hand to your right hand to your left. You don't push at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. You parallel your power to the mat, angle to the mat, parallel with the mat.
Brilliant.
I want you to do that next time you go teach one of your guys get off their back now, Jake.
Brilliant. I love it, Pops. And that's one of the things that I really like about you, and I like about catch wrestling in general, is that, there is somewhat, I guess, of a protecting, your team and whatnot in case, like John and I have talked about this, in case you're getting scouted for a match or something like that. But there's also this openness to anybody who's sincerely interested to showing them a thing or two and how to really do this. And John, you're right. It's not for everybody because it is a little maybe rougher. And I think maybe catch wrestling, because of that, like, speaking to this quality control, keeping it as good as it is and having that more rougher style, we may never grow into a gigantic thing like jiu-jitsu is now, where you have one in every single strip mall across the United States. But it is really exciting right now because we got guys like you. We got, obviously Pops and then you, John, Johnny Husky, Chris Rogers, you guys keeping that along. We've got now Roy and Andrea out in the UK. I think they've seen that there's some serious, sincere interest in Catch as Catch Can, and big name guys now. Like thanks to one of Gene LaBelle's guys, Neil Melanson, who's the head grappling coach over at Randy Couture's place now. We got Randy Couture. It's really quite amazing. And of course, Josh Barnett and Eric Paulson, those guys. It's kind of an exciting time to be around Catch as Catch Can wrestling.
I tell you, what's his name? Oh, Roy Woods. He's an excellent coach. I've seen some of his classes, and he is excellent. Believe me.
Well, and he's, it's really exciting to see the footage of him because the Olympics going on right now, and his participation, and seeing actually the old school Catch as Catch Can style going back into the Olympic style rules and whatnot, and he's got that girl from Guam, and it's really an exciting time for catch wrestling.
And Jake, I love what you said about the open-mindedness, because I know a while back, and Pops will remember this, I had sent him some footage of Roy Wood, and Pops, his response was he's fantastic. What he's doing is great, and I said, what are your thoughts of, ever get me going over there or training some? And Pops has always said, wherever you can learn something, go learn it. And, in my mind, I'm always learning. So I don't think that'll ever stop. I think the day you stop learning I think you're done. I think you've reached your peak and you'll never go any further.
That's so true. And I think that's kind of specific to the philosophy of real, authentic Catch as Catch Can, because that's what Billy drills that in us all the time. He's like, and that's what his coach Billy Riley was telling him, which is also Roy Wood's coach, that you're learning how to learn. And the second you stop learning, this is what drives me nuts about these guru guys. Is it's like they think it's a closed system. And Billy Robinson, as well traveled and well known as he is, he'll tell you to this day that he's still learning.
And I think that's fantastic. And that's too, so yeah, and like we said earlier, there's only subtle things that you really see. When I watch our style, or I see whether it's Billy Robinson or Roy Wood or Fujiwara,
yep.
When you see it, you go, yeah, it's all. You can tell it's all Catch as Catch Can. There's no questioning that, And then there's so in some things you see and you're like, oh, it looks a little jiu-jitsu, or that looks a little hybrid, and that's fine, and that's what guys want to do. But if you stay to the vintage style, I think there's always ways to learn, even on a basic move like a wrist lock. I said earlier.
Jake, I'm going to pass this on to you. I passed it on to John, and I got to pass it on to Johnny Husky. Do you have any long tights?
I really don't. I just wrestle in shorts and knee pads.
Okay, let me point this out to you. You look at the old timers. That's how I started out. I guess I'm an old timer then. I started out with long tights, and Henry Colin had with long tights. And there's a reason for that, because once you clamp a figure 4 on somebody, or a head scissors or whatever, they ain't going to pull out.
Because there's a bit of a grip to it.
Yeah, you bet. I guarantee you. And I tried to talk Johnny into it when I first met him. I bought him a couple pair of long red tights, and I don't know whatever happened to him, but I recommend it, especially these guys in the MMA stuff. You know, because everybody wants to punch everybody, and I tell one of our fighters, Johnny Buck, is fighting this Friday, and of course I know he's going to go over and start punching. I said, you don't have to punch. I said, you know, if you get on somebody's back, they can't punch you. So why would you want to waste your energy and your time by trying to punch somebody? Take their back, and once you get their back, if you can't choke them out or take them out, you shouldn't be wrestling.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, these guys, it's so amazing to have guys like you, Pops, as a resource for the young guys and for those of us, you know, that are just trying to do our best to make heads and tails of the whole thing. And the funny thing is, you know, I'll be 40 next year.
Oh,
I've been
my
wrestling
God.
since I was, believe it or not, since I was a little kid. I've been wrestling. But even then, you've been wrestling probably, you know, I don't even know. Like, how long? When did you start wrestling, Pops?
I'm twice your age. I started wrestling when I was 15.
Oh my goodness! So you've got like twice the experience. So it's such a huge resource for us to have, you know, somebody like you, an old timer that we can pick the brains of, and you know, that cares, that gives a crap, that will chase you around with a hat pin to get you off your back.
I just sent an email to John about the guys who beat me. You know, I think he wanted to ask whoever beat me. So yeah. I sent him a list. And I'll give it to you if you want me to give it to you.
Oh, well, you know, the thing is, Pops, I'm a wrestler. I know that you win some, you lose some, and you know, hopefully the ones that you win are the championship matches, because that's what everybody remembers, right?
But I'm going to pass this on to you, because the guy that got me started was a guy named Quentin Dale Clark. He's out in California yet. He's 84 years old.
Wow.
And he was the first guy that you know, taught me how to wrestle, got me interested. And I was 15 years old, and I think he was 21. And then there's a guy from Europe named Leopold Sternberg. He beat me. Olympic wrestler named Alex Cadier, he beat me. Henry Colin beat me. Doug Henderson beat me. Sweet Oberg beat me. Joe Pazendak beat me. Harold Nelson out of Winnipeg, Canada beat me. Tony Morelli beat me. Speedy Lawrence beat me. Sailor Moran beat me. Leo Wallach beat me. And Charlie Carr beat me. So if anybody asks you, now this all happened before I was 29 years old.
Yeah.
Since that time, I've had a pretty good record.
Well, Pops, you know, that's just like somebody had asked me about Matt, you know, Matt Tran, and my student, and they said, I said, yeah, I'm undefeated against Matt, but I haven't wrestled him in 3 years either, and I wouldn't want to now. You know, the kid's an awesome athlete. He's really learned very well. And you know, one of the things that I would like to say too is that, you know, with Pops, you know, I think a lot of people get the impression like, oh, you train with the guys, like, how old's your coach? Oh, he's 80 years old. Oh, well, you know, when I look back on old video footage and stuff I have, this is back at the old Army Recreation place that Pops was talking about where he met Johnny. And Johnny and I met Johnny up there one weekend, and Pops was there, and he remembers this. And Pops actually got down on the mat and wrestled around with me a little bit there. And, of course, it didn't go very well for me. But you know, in this day, he's not now in a situation where I guess he's not, you know, physically coaching as much. But here's the thing: I still learn by just our conversation on wrestling. And I think once you get to a certain point, you know, you can have people tell you things like he's talking to us today, you know, about, you know, the things about the way to get off your back, don't get on your back, things of relaxation, just little subtle things, and then I'll go to the gym and try it. And, you know, and that's the thing, I've stayed with it because it's just continued to bring me success. And when I started with Pops, I mean, I think everybody beat the crap out of me on every time I stepped on the mat.
Especially Martin.
yeah, and Martin Steiner. I mean, we were talking about earlier. I mean, he
was 40 years old at the time, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, and I was in my mid-20s, you know, and I'll be 41 in October. And Martin, you know, he he was a super strong guy, not a very big guy, but really strong for size, very athletic. But he was just vicious. I mean, he would rip you, he would grind on you. If you didn't like knuckles and elbows, you're the wrong guy to wrestle.
He picked up the carny-style of wrestling the way I was taught, better than anybody in the class that I had when I first went over to Johnny's. Martin picked up on it better than anybody. Guys used to come and say, "God damn, Pop, Martin just tearing me up." He drops his shin across my Achilles tendon and digs his fist in my ear. And while he's doing that, I said, "That's why this is carny-style catch wrestling. You get a reaction from the man. This is why you do this thing. That's why you use your elbows in the right place, your fist in the right place, your shin bone in the right place, your knee in the right place. That's what you do to your opponent to get a reaction from him. So when he reacts, he makes a mistake."
Yeah, that's one thing Billy Robinson pushes too, is that he always says to, if some guy comes to him and says, "I'm going into a match and I'm planning on doing this, that, and the other thing," Billy's like, that's just not how it works. It's a case-by-case basis. It's like, when he does something, I react to it. Maybe I'll force him to make a certain act, sugarfoot or fake him into it, but then it's always about taking what's given, that kind of catch as catch can, getting what you can.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And Pops, you said that about Martin, and what Jake is saying there, is so dead on. I mean, and there you see, Mr. Robinson from Great Britain, and obviously Pops, you're from Minnesota, and I'm from South Carolina. So, it's even though it's around the world, but you still have a lot of that same kind of mindset. And this is what I tell guys. When I get a new guy in, Jake, I tell him, you got to let your ego at the door. And I have kids all the time come in and tell me all the state titles they've won. I have D1 wrestlers coming in. I have guys who have beaten D1 wrestlers at their own game, and I'm talking just pinning and no hooks. And then when they find out that my guy might not have ever wrestled amateur, they're shocked. They can't believe it, And all it is just being in a gym and wrestling all the time. People have I think a mystique that you have to be in a school system to learn to wrestle, and that's just not the case. And I would recommend that for anyone coming up now, any young kids. Certainly, with my own son, if he wants to venture into this one day, and I'm not sure that I want him to, but I would want him to come up through amateurs, come up the right way, and. What you said about the grinding Pops and the Martin, I would have to take these beatings. And that's what I tell my guys. I just said, hey, be open-minded, be willing to learn, and look, losses, you'll get better from them. And I think, I think the last time I wrestled Martin, I called him in a toe hold. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter because that makes it like maybe that's my one day against his 50 times, or 100 times.
This is the thing that I think people need to get their heads right about. If you're a wrestler and you really are challenging yourself and pushing yourself, you're going to, there's going to be those times when you do get bested, and those going to be those days when you do win. But it's like playing almost any sport or any game, You're just doing it because you love it, you have a passion for it, and it feels right for you.
Right.
That's right. And that's what I try to just make my guys understand that, when you're a new guy into this, even if it was jiu-jitsu or judo or karate or boxing, if you're the new guy and you don't have experience, you're going to get whooped. That's just the way it is.
John, and you nailed something. It is, I think just because the nature of what we do, it attracts kind of your tough guy, and I'm saying that in quotes, that checking the ego, that this is really detailed craftsmanship, for lack of a better term, and it takes training and effort. It's not some just nasty street fight brawl. And there's tough street fighters and tough brawlers. That's not anything about their toughness. It's about that there's a craft to this catch as catch can, and whether it comes from this side of the Atlantic or on the other side, there's a serious craft and like an art to it that takes years of dedication.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're going to take those, like you said, you're going to take those. You're going to, losses you learn. And I think it was Carl Gotch who had even said, you find out how a guy beats you, and you don't let him beat you that way again. You learn from that mistake. And,
yeah.
And that wasn't exact words verbatim, but it was something similar to that. I recall reading that somewhere. And, that's the thing is I try to get over the guys. It's just, listen, hang in there. I mean, it's not how much you can dish out. It's going to be how much you can take. And at some point, it's going to come together. And the thing is one of the things Pops has tried to get across to everyone over the years. And, Johnny grabbed it first, and then finally it took my slow self a little bit longer, and I finally understood it too. Is you got to learn to relax when you're getting beat. You got to learn to relax when you wrestle, and that's almost like an oxymoron, because people are. It's like, how do you relax while you're wrestling? But your mind has to be calm, or if you panic, you're a dead man. And you can't panic, even if things aren't going well. You just got to be able to, say, hey, okay, I've got to change the situation. So I guess my point is if you're taking knuckles and somebody's cross-facing you and they're just continuing to cross-face you, if you panic, you're going to get beat. You're going to get hooked. You can't panic. You have to wrestle out and stay relaxed.
Now, for the two of you guys, because we're creeping in on an hour now, and I kind of want to wrap things up. I don't want to give them the whole cow, just a glass of milk. And so people who are interested and want to work out with you guys, or what's the best way to contact you? I mean, you got websites, you got Facebook. What's the best way to hook into what you guys are doing?
Well, go ahead, John. You know more about it than I do. You got your website, and Johnny's. Give him Johnny's.
Yeah, I would say Johnny Husky obviously is top notch in my book, and I'm still a student of his. His website is blackeyefitness.com, I believe.
Okay. Or if you go to blackeyemma.com.
Okay, all right, and if
people go to like a search engine and they type in, they type in a search engine, they'll be able to find it. Black Eye,
exactly,
and then
exactly.
What's the city? Arden, North
Carolina.
Okay, and John, yours again?
Mine is you can go to Ring of Fire, Catch As Catch Can Wrestling on Facebook, or Ground Force Mixed Martial Arts.
Okay, great.
And,
great.
We're in Easley, South Carolina. So
easily.
And I'm not hard to get a hold of. So.
Okay, super. Yeah, and of course, if anybody has a hard time, they can always contact me, scientificwrestling.com. Find the email there, and then I'll forward the email to either one of you guys. Well, Pops, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule. Like I said, you've always been.
Hey man, I got a schedule. My schedule is try to get out of bed in the morning.
I appreciate it, Pops.
I got to go make a little lemonade, so I'll talk to you when it's necessary, Jake. Good talking to you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Bye, John.
Hey, John, I appreciate it, buddy. And again, if anybody has any questions about either Pops or John or those guys, I'm happy to forward their information along. And for those of you who tuned in, I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, and keep wrestling. As Pops would say, head up, elbows in.
That's right, Jay.
Great.
And I appreciate everything you've done as well. So thank you, and God bless everyone.
Thanks, John. Okay, we can cut it right there. You got to remember to do that code to exit out, otherwise it won't save.
So I need to hang on. Let's see. I got to do.
It's like code. The same one. It's like 9 star or star 9, whatever you had done.
Okay. This will press number 9 again. Okay, hang on.
Yep.